Okay, it's time once again for yet another edition of the RazMansReality. I think I solved the static issue. The wire ended up getting caught, the mic wire, this wire here, ended up getting caught under my monitor, which I think is what caused the static from yesterday. So hopefully that corrected itself. So here we are on a Sunday, and it's before the race, because it's a night race, and it's before the Oscars because the Oscars are at night. So what is there left to talk about on a day where there's no wrestling news either? Well, I have a lot of fandoms, a lot of things that I'm passionate about, and I've talked about most of them. But two of them that I haven't talked about, one is Spider-Man, and the other is Batman. And today, I thought I would talk about some Batman. Mostly because I was talking to my buddy Levi, who was asking me, well, not asking me, but we were just talking Batman and making some points. And one of the points that we made and we both agreed on is something that I've been telling people for years, pretty much my whole life, since I've been a fan of the character my whole life, and that is that Batman and Joker are the same person. They're just polar opposites of the exact same personality. Because think about it, Batman is the example of what can happen to an individual when he goes through a traumatic experience and chooses to internalize that experience and turn it into him doing something good. The Joker is an example of someone who was probably traumatized in his past, and I say probably because although we've had the Joker pretty much in the comics since the mid-1960s, and he's been through variation after variation after variation, the one constant that remains is something that Heath Ledger perfectly and beautifully, and hopefully, as I predicted yesterday, Oscar-worthingly portrayed in The Dark Knight to a T. And that is that Joker never has really explained his history as a character. And part of that reason is because the Joker was given no background or no history when he was first introduced in what was then known as the Batman comics. He was never given a history. As things evolved throughout the years and Joker became that polar opposite of Batman personality-wise, he was given a bit of a history. And there's been different interpretations of that history, and Ledger nailed that perfectly because he gave a version of how he got his scars, but he gave it in numerous ways throughout the film. So you never really know in The Dark Knight what has caused the Joker to be who he is. And what that shows is the ability of the reader, or the chance of the reader or the fan, to interpret the character himself. And what I've always interpreted the Joker as is, as I said, the version of Batman but evil. The Joker, more than likely, is a person who suffered some sort of traumatic event, whether it was his father abusing his mother and then scarring his face, or whether it was his wife being scarred and him trying to sympathize with his wife, like he said in Dark Knight, or whether it was another interpretation that's been seen in the comics as well as the 1989 Batman film with Jack Nicholson as the Joker, when he fell into a vat of acid and was permanently scarred. whether you believe in any of those interpretations or some other interpretation of your own, the bottom line is the one clarity that we seem to do have about the Joker is that he was traumatized somewhere in his past. But rather than him taking that traumatic experience and doing something good with it, the way Bruce Wayne chose to do, he being the Joker, chose to take that and say that there is no good in humanity. There is no right, no wrong. It's just about being who you are. And that everyone is evil, everyone is just like me, they just need to be pushed in that direction, i.e. Harvey Dent and the way they portrayed the forming of the Two-Face character in The Dark Knight. So the Joker is the permanent example of what can happen to an individual if he's traumatized and chooses to allow that traumatizing experience to turn him psycho in the head and cause him to lose all sense of reality, no pun intended, and all sense of right and wrong. So that is why the Joker is such a perfect villain for Batman and my favorite of all time. The thing, though, that people don't really realize about the character of Batman and all of his villains, not just the Joker, but all of them, is that it's all about psychology. There was a special that aired, and it's on The Dark Knight, both the DVD and a Blu-ray. I believe it's on the DVD. I know for sure that it's on a Blu-ray. It's on the second disc of the Blu-ray, and it originally aired on A&E. It's called Batman Unmasked, The Psychology of the Dark Knight. And in this, as I said in the onset, they talk about things that I've always known about the character. And that is that Batman and all his villains are psychological. They're representations of actual people that can be dramatized or have been dramatized and turned around to make comic book characters. Bruce himself, as I said, is a deeply flawed individual who just turned that flaw into a drive to do something good. And the most permanent example, or prominent, that's what I'm trying to say, sorry I got tongue-tied there, but the most prominent example of this as far as actual person in history is President Teddy Roosevelt. Roosevelt was a man who lived in the shadow of a great humanitarian in the form of his father. The same parallels can be drawn between Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne. Bruce was always striving to live up to Thomas's pedestal that he put the Wayne name on, and also the fact that Bruce blames himself for Thomas's death caused him to create this persona, this character of Batman. So we're probably about to run out of time here. We're on a 10-minute time limit, so I'm going to end with this. Who is the real person? Is it Batman or is it Bruce Wayne? The answer is it's both. There would be no Batman without Bruce. It is Bruce and his internal struggles that create the great hero that is Batman. And Batman is a hero, and I will talk about that in a future edition, because some people believe he's not. This is reality according to the RazMan and RazMan style. It's not just a catchphrase, but a way of life.